Juror 79, is that correct? All right, Juror 79 is next. Is this, how many we got in the morning? 79 and...
So we have 5 more after this one.
But when's the break for the group?
After the next one after this, we'll need to break for the orientation.
Yeah, make sure, because I forget. Just call on. Good morning, come on up. Or afternoon. Yeah, chair right there. Hey, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Couple of things before I turn the questions over to the attorneys. First of all, I'm going to swear you in because all your answers have to be under oath. So if you could raise your right hand. You swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror.
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. First of all, thank you for filling out the questionnaire and getting back to us. It gives us a lot of good information to start from. Is everything on that questionnaire true?
You have to do based on my knowledge history.
Okay. And yeah, that was my fault. I forgot to give you the idea or some of the instructions here.
Okay.
We have plexiglass in front of us. We have plexiglass between us. And the attorneys will have their own plexiglass. So there's quite a bit of protection here. I'm going to continue to wear my mask, even though I've had one of the vaccine shots. But that will allow you, if you wish, either for comfort or to be heard more clearly, to take off your mask.
Okay.
And in either case, and if you feel like you need to put it on again, totally your call. But if you could, in either case, mask on or off, pull a little bit closer to the microphone.
All right.
There you go. That should be just fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I can hear me. I can hear myself.
All right. Everything on your questionnaire is true. Is that right?
Yes, it's true.
All right. Are there any changes or additions that you can think of right now for that questionnaire?
Not right now.
All right, because we recognize that you filled this out a couple of months ago.
All right.
And in the intervening months, maybe on reflection, you remembered some new facts, or you realized something you put in there was not accurate, or your opinions evolved even. And right now, it doesn't sound like you have anything to volunteer about that.
No, nothing to volunteer right now.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make is that you should feel comfortable saying something that is different from what's in the questionnaire. Okay? Just with the passage of time, don't worry about it being different. It happens very often.
Okay.
And so I want you to feel comfortable doing that.
All right.
And it's going to come up actually more when the attorneys ask you questions, because they tend to focus on certain questions. In fact, they will often read the question and your answer kind of to reflect or to refresh your memory as to what you actually said.
Okay.
It's not out of disrespect, it's more just to refresh your memory, because it's been a while.
Okay.
Okay, part of that questionnaire provided that you were not supposed to read any news articles and you're to avoid media. But we also, again, understand it's been several months. Has any information about this case or related cases, like related civil cases or pretrial matters or the attorney's parties, anything that you inadvertently were exposed to that gave you more information about the case?
No, I
Okay.
don't think so. No.
All right. For example, there's been media coverage about the trial itself lately, and about actually extensive media coverage about a related case. Anything about that you recall seeing just within the last couple of weeks, maybe?
What I can say, I hear about a settlement of 27 million.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the really only thing that I'm aware of as a change, or as something new to the case.
Okay. And that was a civil case, as far as you know, or did you read much of the details?
No, I don't know what it was about, like civil or criminal, I don't know.
Okay. Since it's not related to this case, or not part of this case, can you put aside anything you heard about or saw in regards to that?
No.
Okay. You can put it aside or cannot put it aside?
I'll put it aside,
Okay.
It will not influence my judgment, I think, no.
Okay. Well, right now, let me ask this basic question. Do you feel, when you filled out the questionnaire,
Yes.
that you could be a fair and impartial juror in this case involving Mr. Chauvin?
Yes, I did.
When you heard about this civil settlement, which again is not really relevant to this case, it's different stuff,
Right.
did that move you in any way in a direction of being partial to one side or the other?
No.
Do you think it had any effect on you?
I've still the same. No, it does not affect me.
Okay, great. Any other details of any other news in the last few weeks or months that you can recall that related to this case in some way, even indirectly?
No.
Okay, great. Now for an easier question. Did you recognize any witnesses on the witness list?
No, nobody.
All right, and the trial is going to be about, we figure, about 4 weeks. As you've already seen, we have some delays sometimes, so we can't be for certain. Could you make the 4 weeks on jury duty work?
Yes, if I'm chosen, yes, I can do that.
Okay, your personal, professional life, you could make it work?
Yes, my job actually pay for jury duty, so
Okay,
they will let me go.
so there's no financial hardship?
No.
Okay, excellent. Bottom line, can you put aside anything you've seen or heard outside the courtroom and decide this case just on the facts, the evidence you hear in the courtroom, and the law that I give you?
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nelson. With regard to juror number 79, Mr. Nelson, you may inquire.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you today?
All right, you. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your patience here this morning. I know it's gotten to be a long day. Sometimes these things get delayed a little bit, okay?
Okay.
I just grabbed my water. Hold on.
All right.
All right, so what I'd like to do, sir, is ask you a kind of a series of general questions and then ask you some follow-up questions on some of the answers you provided on the questionnaire. Would that be okay with you?
Okay, it's okay.
All right. So let's assume that you and I met in a different circumstance, a party, a social event, at a store. We just strike up a conversation, whatever it is. What are a couple of things that I'm going to learn about you in that conversation?
I think I'll be honest with you, and then, I don't know you, but I will not trust you right away. So those two things, I'll be honest, but I will not trust you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a little suspicious of me right now?
Not really. You know.
No. Fair enough. When you had heard about the incident involving Mr. Chauvin and Mr. Floyd prior to learning you were a potential juror, is that fair to say?
Right.
When you learned that you were a potential juror on this case, what was your first reaction?
I was surprised. Actually, my wife is the one that opened the envelope and showed me.
Okay.
So we were both surprised that I was chosen. So, yeah, it was just a surprise to me, nothing else.
Okay. Did you have any concerns about your personal safety, your physical safety, your family safety, or COVID, or anything of that nature?
Safety-wise, I was not so concerned because it's only me. The letter said don't tell anybody. So security-wise, I don't know who else knows, so I was not concerned. COVID-wise, I didn't think about COVID, so
Okay.
yeah.
When you came down to the government center this morning and you saw, all of the fences and the army and all of that stuff, how did that make you feel?
I was not expecting them. Actually, I was lost a little bit going around the building, and then when I saw the door and I asked a question, and they opened the door to me, the first person that came to me was the policeman or the army, so I was like shocked. Yeah, so that was I was not expecting to see police or the army in here.
Okay. Did it concern you or worry you?
No, I think it's for my safety at that time. So.
Okay. So it made you feel maybe a little safer?
Right.
Okay. In terms of when the judge gave the group the instructions this morning, that we're trying to protect your anonymity or keep your identity away from the public at this point. How did that make you feel?
I was reassured that I'm safe. So,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I mean,
At some point, your name may be released publicly. Do you understand that?
okay.
I mean, I'm just telling you. We don't know when or under what circumstances, but does that concern you at all if your name were to be known to the public?
No.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
All right. I know that you work in in a management capacity, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have people under me, yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question in terms of, your professional life or even in your personal life. Can you think of a time where you were asked to resolve a dispute between two people?
Yes.
Okay. When you are asked to resolve a dispute between two people, how do you approach that responsibility?
So usually you have to listen to both sides involved in the dispute, and you have to follow the company policy.
Okay.
That's how you can, resolve the problem. So, yeah, you have to bring up the company policy and still listen to the both sides, and then that's where you make a decision.
Okay. It's kind of similar to being a juror. Is you're going to hear about some disputes, and then you have to read the law, and you have to decide how to vote, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm just trying to draw that analogy.
Yeah, I think so.
You understand that your role here as a juror is to essentially resolve disputes.
Yes, that's what.
There's a big dispute between the state of Minnesota and Mr. Chauvin. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
And there may be disputes in the jury room between you and other jurors, or between just other jurors.
Yes.
So thinking about it in the context of being in the jury room, right? You're deliberating with these other people. How do you approach, you've got two groups of jurors, right? And somebody says X, and the other group says Y. I talk with my hands. The other group says Y. How do you resolve the dispute between those two sides?
We have to listen to each other if you are in that room, right? Which is like both sides in the room. Mm-hmm. And we will have the law, right? So we'll go by what the law says. I think that's the way to go. That's what I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you think it changes if you're in a dispute with someone else, versus being an observer of a dispute? Like if you're the person that says, this is the most important thing we need to focus on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus someone else saying that. How do you respond to that? If you think you're right and everybody else is wrong.
Still, we still have to follow the law. If the law says I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying.
So let me take an example. A certain piece of evidence is admitted into this trial, right?
Right.
And, I'm going to make something up. Let's say it's a blood stain, right? And you think that the blood stain is the most important piece of evidence that answers how to resolve the law. Does that make sense? That piece of evidence holds the answer so you can apply the law. But everybody else goes, no, we don't need to look at the blood stain, we need to look at the fingerprint. So you have a dispute about the evidence and how that affects the law. So are you going to just agree with everybody else simply because you want to get it over with and make a decision? Or are you going to fight and say, no, we really need to look at this blood stain here?
In that situation, okay, is that right?
That's
Okay.
good.
Yeah, in that situation, I think we can ask for advice, right? Are we allowed to ask for advice? Because when I'm comparing with, like, the first case you talk about, right? The first example you gave me, when the policy is not clear or when we cannot resolve it, we go to the upper management. We can be the HR or the manager. So we can ask questions from there, and then they will let you know, yeah, this is what you can do.
Right.
So my question will be, if you can ask question, then we'll ask more question.
Okay. Well, let's assume you can't.
Mr. Nelson, let me clarify something.
Sure.
As I told you when you first came in, you are the sole judges of the facts. I'm the judge of the law, and so I can clarify the law, but I
Right.
cannot suggest how you should decide facts. Does that give you a better idea on the division of labor here?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mr. Nelson, I'm sorry.
All right.
I was just going to say, let's assume you can't ask questions,
Right.
right? You and 11 other people have to decide, do we pay attention to this or do we pay attention to that?
Right.
Right? So, my question is, are you going to just agree with everybody because you just want to get it over with?
No. If I think I'm right and I'm following the right thing, then I'll stand for that. I'm not going to go with what they say.
Sorry, someone's hammering upstairs, it sounds like. Okay, you're not, can you repeat that, sir?
So if I think that I'm right, then I'm not going to follow anybody else.
Okay.
If I'm thinking they are wrong, so
Sure.
I'm not going there anyway.
Are you willing to hear them out?
I will, for sure, 100%.
Would you insist that they hear you?
Yes, I'll try to convince them that I'm right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what if the judge gives you a list of the law? That's what will happen, is he'll tell you, here's the law that you have to apply in this case. Because he decides what the law is, you decide what the facts are.
Correct.
Now, what if you think the judge is wrong, or you think the law should be different? You look at it and you go, that can't possibly be the law. What do you do then?
I mean, that's what the judge gave me, that it's a law, so it's a law. I have to follow it.
You can follow the law regardless of whether you think it's wrong or should be changed.
Yes, I will follow it.
Okay, great. I'm going to follow up with a few questions on your questionnaire, okay, sir?
Okay.
To try to get through this as quickly as possible. I like to kind of ask a question about this video that's referenced in this questionnaire. There's questions about a video.
Yeah.
Now, there's several videos that have been made public. There's a bystander video. A person took a video on their cell phone, and that video went, viral on the internet, became a news story. There were some body cameras that were released. There were some security footage from nearby stores. Which of those videos do you remember watching?
I would say I did not watch the whole video, but there was one on Facebook. I watched part of it, not the whole thing, but yeah, I watched part of it.
So that's the bystander video, the person that was standing and watching Mr. Floyd get arrested?
I think that's the one, yeah.
Okay. And I think you said you watched it 2 or 3 times?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Did you also see little snippets or clips on like the news or TV?
Yes, it was everywhere, so yeah.
Okay. So I think we're talking about the same video. So you were asked to write down what you remember or what you had heard, and you wrote, I remember I saw in the news and on social media one of the officers kneeling on George's neck. The other officers were looking on and also trying to maintain order as people started gathering at the scene. Do you remember writing that?
Right.
And then you say, at one time they had to call the ambulance on the scene. They took George to the hospital when he died. I also remember while on the ground, George was shouting or crying that he can't breathe.
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of watching on the news and or talking to your friends, that's the sum of what you had kind of heard about the case or seen, right?
Yes, I would say.
You were asked a question that, based on what you've seen, read, or heard, had you formed an impression of the defendant, so an opinion of the defendant.
Yes.
And you wrote that you had a neutral opinion of the defendant, right?
Yeah.
And you wrote, and when asked why, you said, because so far I have not heard anything or statements from them or him.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So one of the I guess the questions that I have for you is, under our system of law, where the judge just told you this morning, is the defendant does not have to testify.
Okay.
Mr. Chauvin does not have to introduce evidence. He does not have to ask a question of any witness. He does not have to testify. Would it be necessary for you to hear from him?
I think it will help if you can hear from him, right? But if the law say cannot, I mean, he's not obliged to say anything, then I mean, it is what it is, right?
Yeah, and I mean, could you make a decision about this case if you never heard anything from him?
Yes, I will follow the law at that time, yeah.
You were asked for your impression of Mr. Floyd as well, and you said you had a somewhat positive impression of Mr. Floyd, and you wrote, because the media talked a lot about him in a positive manner, and there have been a lot of demonstrations supporting him.
Yes.
Since filling out this questionnaire, have you heard anything else about Mr. Floyd, or do you still retain that view of him?
I did not hear anything else apart from what I just said this morning to the judge. Not really anything else.
And you understand Mr. Floyd's not on trial here, Mr. Chauvin is.
Yes.
So you formed an opinion that was neutral. I mean, from what you've seen and heard and talked about with your friends, can you put that all to the side and start presuming Mr. Chauvin innocent of these charges?
Yes. I never say he was guilty, you know. I just say I was neutral. So, yes.
Okay. You were asked if you had talked to your friends, family members, coworkers, or discussed this case online on social media, and you wrote yes, but you also wrote, I don't like expressing my opinions to people. So did you just talk to like your wife or family members?
Yes. Like at work, people bring it up and then I just brush it out. I don't talk about it, you know. And if I say yes, at one time, it's just like with family and with my son.
Okay. So have you today formed any opinion about who or what is responsible for the death of George Floyd?
No.
Okay. You were asked about whether you believe your community had been negatively or positively affected by any of the protests, and you wrote that you live in a suburb and you personally did not see any impact in your community. You understand that after Mr. Floyd died, there were lots of protests, and then there were riots. Do you think that those negatively or positively impacted the Twin Cities community as a whole?
I'm not sure. Like I say, I don't come to this area a lot, so yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you recognize there's a difference between a protest and a riot?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me what you see as the difference between a protest and a riot?
I would say a protest is when you are expressing your disagreement with a situation or with anything, or even an opinion and everything, right? And then you can just talk about it act and demonstrate, right? That's a protest for me. And a riot to be when you start like breaking stuff, going to the store, taking stuff out, call it looting, or all those. I think at that time that was a riot.
Okay.
That would be different for me.
Right. Okay. Do you see any positive changes or have any positive opinion of the protests that were, or negative, I should say, positive or negative opinion of the protests that occurred after Mr. Floyd's death?
You can protest, right, without, I mean, there are laws that guide everything. You can protest without the right thing. So I cannot say that I have a positive opinion about the negative demonstration, which is the route. So I don't have any.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. And you would definitely, you said you were asked a question, no matter what you have heard or seen about this case, and no matter what opinions you might have formed, can you put all of that aside and decide this case only on the evidence you would receive in court, follow the law, and decide the case in a fair and impartial manner? And you wrote, I would definitely say yes.
Yes, it's a yes, yeah.
Okay, good. You were asked about some experiences with police contacts, and you had your home burglarized at one point.
Yes.
Okay. And you felt that the police responded and handled that situation appropriately?
Yes.
Do you know, or were you ever made aware, did they catch the person who broke into your house?
No, they never did.
Okay. Do you think that the police somehow failed you in that regard? In catching the person?
He ran away, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you harbor any resentment towards police officers because they didn't catch the person who broke into your house?
No.
Okay, fair enough. You were asked, I'm going to just ask you about a couple. There were a series of statements, and I'm showing you this, I don't know if you can see it, series of statements, and you were asked to kind of rank them from strongly agree to strongly disagree.
Yeah.
And I just have a couple of questions about some of your answers.
Okay.
Right? You were asked, discrimination is not as bad as the media makes it out to be, and you had no opinion about that statement.
Yeah.
Right? Why no opinion?
Can I say that's my opinion?
I suppose that's fair.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on everybody, you know. For me, like I say, I don't have any opinion because.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were asked, however, or the statement reads, blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system, and you somewhat agreed with that.
Okay.
Like, do you have personal experience? Do you have friends who've experienced? Do you read studies? Like, why would you have more of an opinion of that than how the media presents discrimination?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
I know it's a bit, I don't get the question.
The statement reads, blacks and other minorities do not receive equal treatment as whites in the criminal justice system. And you somewhat agreed with that.
Yeah.
And I'm just asking, why would you somewhat agree with that where you have no opinion as to how the media presents that issue?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All right. So, I did not have any study, but like we said, the way the media presented, and when you read some stuff, you can see that sometimes they make mistake and then they correct it later. Okay, so most of them tend to be black people, so that's why I would say somehow or somewhat agree with that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But you also indicated that police in my community make me feel safe, excuse me, and you strongly agreed with that.
Yes.
You were asked a couple of questions about your perspective on Black Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. You wrote that both of those you had a somewhat favorable opinion of. And with respect to Black Lives Matter, you wrote, I took this position because every life should matter and black people think their lives are not valued. Can you explain that a little bit more? Like, why do you?
I mean, every life matter, right? I say that, yeah. But again, the black people, that's what they think. It doesn't mean that's what it is, right? But that's what they think. That's what I'm saying. That, yeah.
And so because they feel that way, it's important, right? It's important to respect that.
Yeah, it's really important.
And even if it's right or wrong, you're saying it's, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, right?
But it's not if it's right or wrong, right? But if it's right, we have to respect that.
And again, with respect to Blue Lives Matter, do you understand that to be a reference to police officers?
Yes.
Okay. You wrote, again, every life should matter and not be disrespected. We all, at the end, have family to go back to at the end of each day or at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think I'm nearing the end, sir. You were asked ultimately if you wanted to serve as a juror in this case, and you checked the box not sure. And then you wrote why, or when you were asked why, you wrote, if I qualify, I will serve. It is a duty I have to fulfill according to the law, right?
Yeah.
So my question for you is, why would you not be sure about whether you wanted to be a juror in this case?
Okay, this is my first time doing this, and I'm not from America originally. So that's why I say if I qualify, that's the if. I'm not sure about it. So that's what it is. It's not that I'm not sure if I can serve or if I will do it. I'm not sure if I can qualify to do it.
Are you a citizen of the United States?
Yes, I am.
Do you live in Hennepin County?
Yes, I do.
Are you over the age of 18?
Yes, I am.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony offense?
No.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Okay, thank you.
Pause.
It depends, passes for cause. Mr. Slisher.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oh, sure. All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
And I understand that you've lived in the general Twin Cities area for about 19, 20 years, is that right?
Yes. I mean,
Have you had any interactions with Minneapolis police?
not Minneapolis, but where I live, yes.
And that was the issue that you discussed before with,
Right.
with your home, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. During the first part, when you were talking about what you learned about the case from the media, you wrote that you remember that while on the ground, George was shouting or crying that he can't breathe. Do you recall writing that?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any opinion as to whether or not someone would be able to say they couldn't breathe if they actually couldn't?
No, if you cannot breathe, you can say you cannot breathe. Yeah.
So
You can-
you think someone could say that and be sincere?
Yes.
Okay. You indicated on the questionnaire that you strongly disagree with the notion of defunding the police. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you please explain why you strongly disagree with that?
For me, the police does a lot, right? I mean, like I say, when somebody broke into my house, I called the police and they came. I mean, if they were defunded, how can they come and help me?
And the police have been helpful to you. You generally trust the police.
Yeah, I would trust the police.
I notice you have a family, and one member of your family maybe getting near the age of being able to drive, right?
Yes.
Have you gone through driver's ed with this family member?
No, he's getting there, man. Not quite. By next year.
He'll be coming up on that.
Yes.
So you're going to have to teach this family member how to drive.
Yes.
When you teach your family member how to drive, you show them the rules of the road, in your neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
What will you tell your family member to do if he gets pulled over by the police?
But you stop and you answer the questions. If they ask questions, you answer their question.
Would you tell your family member to take any other particular precautions?
Precaution like I don't know. When the police stop you, I mean you stop, right?
And that's what you would what you would tell your family
Yeah.
member. Okay.
Stop and then.
Some people might say that someone who doesn't cooperate with the police, if something happens to them, they have only themselves to blame. What do you think of that statement?
Cooperation is good, right? We help everybody. But if something happens, we still have to look for the fact. Yeah. If you did not cooperate and something happened, we still have to deal with the fact. What happened? Was the law say? Can we do this? Do we have not do that? So yeah.
So it sounds like you would say that a person should cooperate with the police.
That's my opinion. Yes.
But if they don't and something happens to them,
Yes.
do you believe the police should still have to follow the law and the proper procedure?
Right. That's what I was saying. Yes.
Do you know anyone who struggles with a drug addiction?
No.
Do you know anyone who uses illegal drugs
No.
or alcohol, for that matter?
No.
No. I take it you don't use alcohol yourself?
I mean, I drink by like
Socially?
not like a social drinking at home or yeah.
Have you heard anything, or if you were to find out that someone involved in this case had been using drugs,
Okay.
what would you think of that person, just as a general proposition? Would you have a positive view of them, negative view of them, or a neutral view of them?
I would say neutral. I would be neutral because yeah.
Someone might say that if someone is taking illegal drugs and they're harmed, they have only themselves to blame for that too. What do you think of that statement?
I would disagree with that. I mean, if I say disagree, meaning like you are on drug, then something happened to you, right? It's a tough one, but I think I'll be neutral and I will not blame anybody first. I mean, still we just still have to go with the fact, you know.
Do you believe, as you sit here, that you're satisfied with kind of the level of oversight that the police department has over individual officers? Do you think that there's an appropriate level of oversight?
I don't know the oversight, so I cannot say it's appropriate because I don't know how it goes. So I cannot form an opinion on something I don't really know about.
Well, can you tell me what you think an appropriate level of oversight of the police officers should be?
So when you say oversight, can you explain it a little more
Yes.
for me, please?
So, for example, police officers, they have to make decisions when they're out doing their job, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they have to make decisions that are very fast in a changing situation. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And do you think that it is fair then for an officer's discretion to be questioned when they're out there trying to enforce the law and making decisions in a rapidly changing situation?
Yes, that would be good if they can, I would say, yeah, take a step back and before they act, right? That would be good. But still, we still have to deal with the fact in each situation.
And do you think it's appropriate for someone who hasn't had police training to be the person in the position of, judging what the police officer did? So, for example, if you're seated as a jury, you would be evaluating whether a police officer's actions were reasonable or unreasonable under the circumstances.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's fair for you and other jurors to sit in judgment over a police officer?
I would say it's another pair of eyes and a new mind, just looking at the action. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that person should be fair and see the fact and, yeah, better. So that's what I think.
One moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I have no further questions, and I'll pass for cause.
All right, sir, you will be on our jury. And so what we're going to do is we're going to release you until March 29th. Go about your business. You don't have to report in. On March 29th at 9 a.m., we'll actually start the trial with all the other jurors present. And what the deputy's going to do is take some paperwork from you as you leave. Make sure that a couple things, that we have your current contact information to answer any phone calls you get. In case there's a delay and we have to change the date, we don't want you to come down here unnecessarily. There might also be some instructions regarding parking and that type of thing. So that's why we need to contact you. The other thing is, try and avoid all news media about this case. In fact, given the amount of news coverage there is, if you could avoid the news for a while, that would be great. Okay? Including what's maybe in your Facebook page, that'd be wonderful. All right, any questions for me?
No.
Okay, you can go with the deputy, and thank you again for taking the time to answer our questions.
Thank you, sir.
break. Oh, is she next? Is she next?